divided the lands. Last week we went through the dividing of land to the different tribes, and now Joshua died already. So we are entering the era of the Judges. And the book of Judges is one of the most violent books in the Bible. Things that you never imagined can happen, did happen in the book of Judges. And we will go through, maybe it will take us about 3 lessons to go through the book of Judges. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. And I did give you all some reading to do, but I want to do a little bit of introduction of the book. You can turn to the book of Judges 1 verse 1. Can you just read?
Now after the death of Joshua, it came to pass that the children of Israel asked the Lord, saying, Who shall be first to go up for us against the Canaanites to fight against them?
Yes, so Joshua has died already. Now they need to find a leader. Okay, they need to find a leader. So the Israelites, a couple of million of them, they asked the Lord, who will be the first to fight for us against the Canaanites? Verse 2.
For verse 2, and the Lord said, Judah shall go up. Indeed, I have delivered the land into his hand. Remember
the previous week, we talked about the blessing of Jacob on Judah, the prophecy of Jacob on Judah. And yeah, that's exactly what happened now. God says now Judah is going to lead the Israelite nation. There are still some lands that are not covered, are not conquered yet. So Judah, after that the verses will tell you that Judah leads the army, went on and they fought and they fought and they fought. And you can see that the first victory they won. From then on, it was going downhill already. Because from then on, the Israelites started to lose the war. Even when the Lord was with them, they could not conquer. So if you go down to verse 19, Ben, can you read?
So the Lord was with Judah, and they drove out the mountainous, but they could not drive out the inhabitants of the lowlands, because they had chariots of iron.
The Lord was with them. Even when the Lord was with them, they couldn't conquer the nations because those people had iron chariots. What happened now than before? Before, it doesn't matter what the enemy has. They just wipe them out. But now comes a situation whereby even though the Lord was with them, they cannot conquer. They conquer the hill country, but they could not conquer the one living in the valley. Hey, they are in the hill country means, remember Alex was saying that when you're on a mountain, you have the advantage, correct or not? But here, even with the advantage, they couldn't conquer. Even with God being them, they couldn't conquer. Why? And after that, you go down and go down and go down. Benjamin also couldn't conquer. Manasseh also couldn't conquer. Ephraim also couldn't conquer. Zebulun also couldn't conquer. Asher also couldn't conquer. Naphtali also couldn't conquer. So you can see now that after Joshua, the Israelites are starting to lose the war. What was the reason? Why do you think? What was the reason? Well, when we don't know the reason, the Bible always gives us the reason, okay? Judges 2:2. Let's go to verse 2 first. Rose, do you have that? Judges 2 verse 2.
You are not to make a covenant with the inhabitants of this land. You are to tear down their altars, but you have not obeyed me. What is this you have done? Therefore I now say, I will not drive out these people before you. There will be thorns in your sight, and their gods will be trapped for you.
Okay. So what was the reason they couldn't drive out the enemies?
They compromised.
They did not obey. So you see the sea here. The sea is here. And then this is the place they could not conquer. The nice beach resorts they couldn't conquer. They only can conquer up here, but not down there. All the way.
They compromised. They accepted the inhabitants. They more or less like live among them. they didn't really obey the law because
They did not obey the law. That's why God says, you have not obeyed me. You have not obeyed me. Now I'm not going to be like those days Joshua was so obedient to me, I'm going to let you conquer. But did they think they were going to conquer? Yes, they did. But when they started to compromise and they started to mix with the people here, that's why after that, God says, I'm going to let them live among you and I'm going to let them be a thorn on your side. And I'm going to allow them to even torture you guys. And who were the ones who were left behind? Like all these, the enemies. Who are the enemies? You go to chapter 3 verse 3, Judges chapter 3 verse 3. What does it say? These nations, the Philistines, then the Canaanites, the Sidonians, the Hivites who live in the Lebanese mountain. Who are these so-called enemies of God? Are all of them created by God? Yes. So how come there's this group of people that God wanted to destroy and occupy? Any idea where they came from? Whose line? Which line? Is it Ishmael's line? The Bible gives us the answer. Let's go backtrack. Because this is discovery class, I want you all to know the details. Genesis chapter 9. Who can guess? Genesis chapter 9 is the story of who? Noah. Yes, that gives you a little bit of a clue. Actually, let's go to 10 first. 10. Let's go to 10. 10 will be the genealogy of the children of Noah. Remember, after Noah, the flood, Noah had 3 sons. Am I right? The last time I showed you, Noah had 3 sons. What are the 3 sons' names? Very good students. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. This will be now the beginning of the nations. That's where we are from, because the flood already killed everybody else. So Ham went around the Egypt side. Japheth up north, the European side. Shem is the Asian side. Okay, Shem is the Asian side. We are more likely the descendants of Shem. These are the records, family records of Noah's son, verse 1. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Go down to verse 6. Yes, verse 6. Ham's sons. Who are Ham's sons? Okay, 4 sons. Cush, Mizraim or Egypt, Put, and Canaan. And then after that, Noah's grandchildren. Who are Noah's grandchildren? Go down to verse 10. Grandchildren is Nimrod. Remember this name, Nimrod, because Nimrod is a famous name. He started the kingdom of what?
Babylon.
Verse 10. Babylon. Babylon is friend or enemy of God? Enemy. Alright, Babylon is always known as enemy, even in the book of Revelation. Then after that, you go down to verse 13. Mizraim. Who did Mizraim father? The Philistines. That's right. So you can see now where these people came from. They didn't come from Ishmael. In fact, Ishmael's race was a very peaceful race. If you look into history, his own family, correct? It's not the Ishmael line. It is the Ham line went down to Canaan, which Noah cursed in chapter 9. Verse 15. Canaan fathered Sidon. That's where the Sidonites came from. And then after that, the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Arkites, the Sinites, the Avadites, the Zemarites, the Hamathites, all the tithes came from Canaan. That's why I say Canaanite. And Canaan is the father of all this. Now you know where these people came from? We are going to go back now to the Judges. And the book of Judges, I tell you, in one go, if you want to summarize, you are lazy to read the book of Judges. In one go, this is the picture. Okay, you can see it in your rose book. Rose book very clear. Those of you who have the rose book. The cycle of sin of God's people. And you can read it. Peace in the land when Israel serves the Lord. After that, what happens? Israel enters into worship with other Canaanites and all that. Israel does evil in the eyes of the Lord. When they say evil in the eyes of the Lord, what does it mean? Later we will find out. After that, God punishes Israel by getting the enemies to attack them. And then Israel cry out to God again. Does God save them? God saves them by raising up judges. Go and conquer the enemy, and then Israel is delivered. For a few years, they are peaceful. After that, what happens?
Start again.
Start again. Start again. Start again. The one that God really, really hates is the worship of Baal. Okay, Baal. Baal and Asherah. Who is Baal? You can Google and you find, it's a very ugly looking god. So the god. Who is Asherah? Supposedly the wife. Okay, Asherah. That's why they have the Asherah pose. Why did God hate Baal worship so much? I mean, there are others, there's Molech, there's others. There's the sun god, there's the Dagon. Dagon is actually the father of Baal. Why did God hate Baal worship so much? Do you know what happens in Baal worship? They sacrifice children. They are very happy to sacrifice their own children for the sake of the god. Taking of lives. Okay? And then Asherah. Asherah is the fertility goddess. So there's a lot of erotic immorality even in the temple itself. And so God hated this kind of worship, but the Canaanites were practicing it. Let's go back, go back to Judges. What happened to the Israelites? 2 verse 10.
Okay, verse 10. The whole generation was also gathered to their ancestors. After them, another generation rose up who did not know the Lord or the works he had done for Israel.
And
The Israelites did what was evil in the Lord's sight. They worshipped the Baals, and abandoned the Lord, the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of Egypt.
Okay, all right. So what happened to Israel? So that they now go into sin. What happened?
They forgot. The younger generation forgot what the Lord had
Did
done.
it say forgot or not? It says that whole generation was gathered to the ancestors, means the old generation, the existing generation during Joshua's time died already. After them, another generation rose up who did not know the Lord. Did they forget God?
They did not.
No.
They didn't know.
They didn't know. So whose fault is it?
The old
Fathers.
generation.
The old generation didn't tell the new generation.
The fathers.
Is it true?
Yeah.
You gather from that, it's not that the new generation forgot, So we keep blaming this Israelite, how can they disobey God? They didn't know God. After they have come into the promised land, the parents have all the nice bungalows built for them, they have the nice gardens and then the nice donkeys and cows, everything. They brought their children up in comfortable environment. And they didn't pass on the knowledge of God and the love of God to the next generation. So whose fault is it? So parents is very important. Alright? Don't blame the next generation if they become evil, if the old generation don't teach them. If you don't pass on the right values to your children, who is going to teach them? Today, who is teaching your children values? I thought a bit because got parents here. Who is teaching your children values?
Parents. Oh,
Today, who is teaching your children values?
Social media.
Internet.
Social media and TV. To the hotel or going to bed with the person that you met at the pub the night before. Right now, because Hollywood displays that. Hollywood glamorizes that. Correct or not? There's nothing wrong with doing all sorts of things and fighting yourself to the top. Chinese, Hong Kong movies love to do that. All the gangster and all that, you cheat these people, you kill this person, you betray this person. There is nothing wrong. So whatever your children are watching and listening to and communicating, these are the things that I'm teaching the children today. If the parents don't. Exactly, that's what happened to the generation. So don't blame the generation. Blame the previous generation. Correct or not? Because they didn't know. So when they didn't know, and the family does not do worship and they don't have, any Christian things in the house, then they see, other people, so nice, got this, got that, and they see, this Baal one, they have temple. Because at that point in time, there was only one tabernacle, and the tabernacle could be far away. It was far away. It was somewhere near the river Jordan there. Right? The Gilgal. It was more in Gilgal, the big tabernacle. So in their small places, they don't have. Last time, remember, they live around the church. But now they are already spread out into the whole nation already. If they are spread out like this, there's no church all over. The church is somewhere here. Yeah, Gilgal, somewhere here. They still have a tabernacle here. But how to travel to, every day to that? So they have to continue. They should build like home altar, home worship with children. You all do have your worship, family worship, Then they see other people have temple, they have nice this. So they want, isn't it something attractive? Naturally, they want to go and find out. And they did. So that is what happened to the degradation of the Israelite race. When the people are becoming too comfortable, they forgot to tell their children what God had done for them in Egypt, in the wilderness, and in conquering the promised land. They didn't remind them, didn't tell them. And they started to do evil. God raised up judges. Who are these so-called judges? Are they like our court judges? Who are they, Alex?
Like leaders, army leaders,
Correct.
authority.
They are military leaders. They are not those judges wear the nice, the wig, everything, and then sit in the middle there, talk, No, they did that. They did that. You will see some of them, they did that, like Deborah did that. Sit under the tree to counsel, to judge, to decide on matters. But they also went to war. They're fighters, They are military leaders. They may not necessarily be in the front line, but they strategize. Okay, so when they did evil in the sight of God, suddenly they remembered God, Somehow. Maybe there were some faithful parents who taught their children about God. There are. It's not that all Israel was bad. There were some who taught their children about God. But the children maybe like Angela said, didn't experience God because they didn't have any challenges in their life. So when God challenged already, who do you call out to? Call to God. Go to church. Go to the temple to pray. All these type of things. So the people did that. And did God hear them? Yes. And then they raised up that judges. Now, what did the Israelites do that really caused their downfall? Let's go to Judges 3. Because now they are doing what we call, when we're talking about clean, unclean foods and all that, the mixture, right? Fanwa talk about a little bit about mixture. So 3 verse 6. Chapter 3 verse 6. Do you have that, Angela?
Yeah.
Judges 3 verse 6.
The Israelites took their daughters as wives for themselves, gave their own daughters to their sons, and worshipped their God.
You see the mixture now? They take Canaanite wives and they give their daughters to marry. So when you have that, what happens? Kawin campur. Yes, so the practices will be mixed already. And that was really, at the end of the day, the downfall. And that was what happened. Who was the first judge? Othniel. Okay, you can see that Judges 3 verse 9. We don't talk so much about him. Do you know who is Othniel? Othniel was Caleb's youngest brother's son, nephew. Who is Caleb? Caleb was one of the two spies, including Joshua, who came back and gave good report about Canaan. So that means his family side is very good, righteous people. So he raised up Othniel. After that, in verse 15, he raised up another guy. I like this guy because he's a lefty. Ehud from a Benjamite race. He's a lefty, left-handed. To do that, then after a few years, I think Ehud is how many years? Ehud is long, it's 80 years. Ehud is 80 years. Then after that came down another one, and then came a lady judge. What was her name? Deborah. Okay, then you're going to Judges 4:4 already. Now, if I'm going a little bit fast, you go back and read, okay? Because women were not prominently regarded in those days, but you can clearly say that now there is a woman that is now in a top position, the leadership position, Deborah. So it's very good. It's a very good, how do I say, booster for us women. Inspiration. They like to preach about Deborah on Women's Day, in churches. And she did a good job. In fact, who was her commander? Her commander was a guy called Barack Obama. Barack, when he wanted to go to war, Deborah said, hey, okay, now you go and fight. What did he say? If you don't go with me, I won't go. He needs his leader to go with him. And did Deborah go? Yes. Deborah went to the front line, the war front line. And of course, they won a lot of battles. Now I want to go to the one that I asked you all to read, which is Judges 6, which is very interesting one. Okay, story of Gideon.
The Bible tells of a time when the Midianites, a wicked and warlike people, came like a plague of grasshoppers and swarmed over the land of Israel. The Midianites just took over the land. And hopelessly outnumbered by their enemies, the people of Israel left their homes and fled for their lives into the wilderness, leaving most of their possessions behind. Living in the wilderness often meant being hungry and cold, and the Israelites had a real struggle for existence. The rich people became poor, and the poor people became destitute. Israel as a nation was poverty-stricken, and they cried to the Lord to deliver them from this miserable existence. We read in the Bible that the family of Gideon was one of the poorest in Israel, and Gideon was the youngest son. That, according to custom, made him the least important. So Gideon was used to taking orders
Get some
and
books,
plenty of hard work.
just pay attention to some
When
of the
Gideon was
stories.
told by an angel of the Lord that God had chosen him to deliver Israel from the Midianites, Gideon's reaction was much as we might have expected it to be. Me? I'm supposed to deliver my people from the Midianites? Gideon felt sure that a mistake had been made. Gideon explained to the angel that his family was poor, and being the youngest son, he wasn't an important person at all. But the angel told Gideon no mistake had been made. Gideon was the one God had chosen, and God would help him if he would do as he was told. So, on the basis of his personal faith in God, Gideon started to work. The first thing Gideon did was to organize the men of Israel and get them ready to fight. And all in all, there were 32,000 men. But when God said that was too many, Gideon spoke to his men and ordered those who were afraid to fight to leave the army and go back home. When Gideon gave his men a choice of whether or not to fight, many of the men left the camp. Even though they knew that God had promised victory to their leader, they also knew that the Midianites outnumbered them 4-1. Gideon's new army was much smaller than before, yet it was stronger. These men were not afraid to fight. But would courage make up for lack of numbers? Now Gideon had only 10,000 men, and God alone knew how such a small army could conquer an enemy far more than 10 times their number. Gideon was beginning to realize the true meaning of trust in God. But God was preparing another test of Gideon's faith. And when Gideon talked to the Lord about the size of his army, he got a surprising answer. The Lord said that 10,000 men were still too many. There was only one thing for Gideon to do, and that was to trust and obey. At the Lord's command, Gideon brought his men down to the water and told them to drink. Most of the men bowed down on their knees and drank right out of the stream. And the Lord told Gideon to put these men aside in one group. 300 men lapped the water from their hands. And the Lord said, "By the 300 men that lapped will I save you, and deliver the Midianites into thy hand. Let all the other people go." Now Gideon would face unbelievable odds, 450 to 1 in the enemy's favor. One thing was crystal clear. Unless the Lord performed a miracle, Gideon and his 300 men were facing certain death. In the camp of the Midianites, the midnight hour was the time for changing the guard. It was a noisy affair, and that provided a wonderful opportunity for Gideon. While the Midianites were changing guards, Gideon and his men carried out the first part of their plan. As far as the Midianite guards were concerned, there was nothing surrounding their camp but the emptiness of the night air. Little did they realize that Gideon and his men were stealing through the darkness on a very peculiar mission, each one carrying a pitcher in one hand and a trumpet in the other, and hidden within each pitcher was a lighted firebrand. At last, every man was in position, waiting for the signal from Gideon, ready to do exactly as their leader did. Then, Gideon blew on his trumpet. He broke his pitcher. He held high his torch and cried, "The sword of the Lord and of Gideon!" And all around the camp of the Midianites, the 300 men did as their leader had done. The Midianite guards were struck dumb. In a matter of seconds, the camp of the Midianites was a scene of fear and confusion. They thought a great army had taken them by surprise. Their entire camp must be surrounded. Where could they go? What should they do? Like a herd of wild animals in utter panic, the Midianites began to stampede. Suddenly, in the midst of all this confusion, Gideon's men blew loud and long on their horns again. Then, a strange thing happened in the army of the Midianites. Every man turned blindly on his neighbor and began to fight one another. For the Lord caused it to happen. Gideon drove the Midianites clear out of the land, and they never came back again. And the Lord gave a tremendous victory to Gideon, because he believed in God enough to let him do it. Gideon learned that where God is concerned, believing and doing go together. But more important still, he learned that one man multiplied by God's power equals victory no matter what the odds. The Bible says in Philippians 4:13, "I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me."
How many of us have watched this before when we were younger, or in the kids' time, or when you were a teacher in the Sabbath school class? Or you used to teach your children. The story of Gideon is a very famous story for children. And sometimes we think, hey, it's a good story for children. But is it a good story for adults as well? What did you learn from the story of Gideon? Chapter 6 and 7. Anything that you have learned from the story, the encounter of Gideon with God and his victory?
The Lord will fight our battle.
The Lord will fight our battles. So in what way did the Lord help Gideon to fight?
That he reduced the number of soldiers, so that the Israelites will not think that it's through their own soldiers, the number of soldiers that they won the battle. But again, if we want to win the battle, the first thing we must obey.
Obey in what way? When you say obey, what do you mean by obey?
Keeping his obey God's commandments, keep his laws. I think that's one thing that God cannot tahan is we don't worship Him. That's one thing that we don't have. We have other distractions that in our lives that we give God, the least priority.
The strange thing is that Gideon, in his house, they worship Baal. Because it's not in the here, but when God first called him, God asked him to go and destroy the altar in your area, in your house, your father's house. In fact, and he did it quietly at night. So their house, they were Israelites. You know, like they are every god Israelites, but they had that. So the family was not exactly full obedience to God, but somehow God knows him. And when he says obey means what, He asked him to go and fight for the Israelites. Can you imagine if God one day said, hey Alex, I want you to go up to ISIS. Go up to the ISIS head and tell the ISIS head that repent and believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. Your head will be on the chopping block. Correct. And that's exactly what. So this is called obedience. This obedience is not, yes, I know it is good that, you're right in the sense that we must obey the commandments. But this is command of God, to do something outrageous, something impossible. Something that you cannot do yourself.
But God spoke to him, in person. The angel of the Lord was actually God himself, right? Spoke to him, but does God do that to us? Suddenly come on, tells you in
Directly.
person, directly, because Gideon was even like Moses, God spoke to them. That's why sometimes you wonder, but God spoke to them, but He didn't speak to us,
He does, but you all don't believe.
Yes.
He does, but we don't believe, or we take it as if, no lah, not right one now. When pastor tell you, hey, no, I want you to do this, cannot lah, pastor. Ayo, I cannot lah. I'm so busy. No lah, this one lah. Let Alex do lah, call Sister May can talk very well lah. Do we ever do such things?
Yes.
Yes. I'm not even talking about killing the Midianites. I'm just talking about something very simple that the pastor, who is a messenger of God, a servant of God, who has commands from God, and just asking you to basically do something. Cannot lah. Call Ben better, Correct, no? But Gideon, did he do that? He did question. And why did he question? He said, me? I'm just from Manasseh, small tribe, and I'm the youngest, the poorest, and you want me to do it? The only one that actually, when God went to anoint him and he didn't say anything, he was the youngest, he was who was it? The one that God chose to anoint as king. King David. When God went to anoint him, he didn't say nothing, he said, oh yeah, I'm ready, I'm the king. But this one, he wasn't ready. So what did he ask for? A sign. He asked for how many signs? 2 signs. He asked, in fact, for 3 signs. Alright? He asked for a sign to know that, hey, are you really the messenger of God or not? Are you the messenger of Baal? What did he ask? He go and bring the sacrifice, put in front, and then want to consume the fire to consume. He want to check. So if you want to check the authenticity of your pastor, then you try and bring the bread out of the barbecue and then see whether the beef satay will consume. He asked for 3 signs, and after that he asked for the fleece 2 times. Is it human to do that?
Yes.
Can we ask for a sign from God?
Can.
But if God tells you, give you the sign already, you gotta do it. You've got to do it. Like when we went for Huey-Lesson conference, there were signs that this was the right place for us to be, isn't it? With Rose, with Ben, and even myself. There were signs that said yes, open doors, and then we went for the conference. These are very small matter, but sometimes we ourselves don't hear God, and we say, hey, God don't talk to us. Right? If God doesn't talk to us, there's no point for us to be Christians, isn't it? And God talks to us, either by the word, or sometimes it's a small voice, sometimes something happened to your to you in your company, am I right? God gives you a sign, right? He gave you a job that allows you to come to worship. So what do you do after that, Gideon? Continue. Okay, my time is up. Anything else? One last comment?
I think it's okay that if we do not know how to do, we don't have the knowledge, we don't have the skill. But when God calls upon us, then just step in front. Because God
Just
will
say
provide
yes
the best.
first.
Because Gideon not only those youngest and poorest, he also real coward. At that time want to go to war, so what? Chin and Bopian already lah, 300 okay lah, trust God only lah.
Can you imagine? From 20,000 to 300? And still minus. And this 300, to me, is like, so unrefined, go and lap the water. I would slowly take the cup and drink. This one, it goes to the river and they lap the water, and God chose these people.
They are real
Also, you
battle.
know from a battle that you pick the...
It's from how they drink water from the river. So for us here, you have to, wipe the cup first, ginger tea. Don't do that to ginger tea when next time. You gotta take the ladle, put the ladle in the right place and all that, and then cover up. This one no. Drink fast, everything fast, fight fast, everything. But in fact, they didn't have to fight. What happened? The strategy was very great. Okay, hide the torch inside the jar. Then after that, when they reached nearby, they broke the jar, and then God caused the confusion among the Midianites, and they destroyed themselves. And then the Israelites just stand there and, we won the war. Okay, so very good. You go back and you read it. There are some things inside there that are quite intricate about Gideon, and it can really apply into our lives as followers of Christ, or if you're still considering or learning about God, then consider the story of how God is so merciful. The people did evil, still God will raise up a leader to fight for the people. So next week we're going to go into another, even more terrible judge, but his name is Samson. Okay, even more flowery story, scandalous story, but a good story for us to learn as Christians how we should lead our lives.